Hey everybody, welcome to the stream. It's great to see all of you again. Back for another review. Well-bred rabbit. I have no idea what the bread is about. Am I a bread tuber? Is that the deal there? Yeah, but it's been a little while, so sorry for the continued delays getting this review to lift off. There's been rescheduling. It's been an interesting saga getting to finally be able to have this stream. We had another cancellation tonight, but thankfully we found a last minute replacement. So Moonshine, unfortunately, even though he's on the thumb, he won't be joining us tonight. He'll be replaced by Cider. So I think you guys will enjoy that, though. A lot of interesting thoughts on the comic. Tonight we're talking about Battle Brick Road. It's Eric Weathers' book. It's an older CG project, one we've been to get to for a while, just couldn't quite find the time to fit it in. But thankfully, we're here and we're ready. Yeah, definitely. Are all of you ready? Let's check in with the chat. We've got Darko D13. He says, "Well read, more like well nerd." Not really sure where you're going with that, but oh, he got me. Okay, yeah. He also says cider's an upgrade. That's good to know. So yeah, glad you guys are all cider fans because you're gonna get your fill of cider tonight. He's gonna ciderize all of you, just to ciderize you hard. We've got Linkovich. He says it means you come from a fine line of rabbits. Oh, because I'm well bred. Oh, thank you. Yes, it's fine aristocracy and the well-read lineage. Not bred, you drunk. Yeah. Reading is not my strength. You may have learned that watching this show. So I'm not much of a reader, but I do play one on YouTube. So, that has some weight and authority, of course. Speaking of weight and authority, let's bring on our panel for tonight. We have three great guests, one returning panelist. So really happy to see him back in the reviewer chair. He's been sorely missed. And it's actually great to see him where he belongs, his home here, reviewing comics with us. So let's bring him on first. Everybody, please say hello to Matthew Fowler.
Hello, everyone. Shigama
and Bao. So speaking of Baos, we've got also Matt C.
Hey, how y'all doing? Glad to be here.
Great to see you, Matt. And of course, the aforementioned and spectacular Cider.
I was told to bring Wooster levels of energy to the review.
You're going to have to Wooster up the review for us, Cider. So
don't worry.
Unfortunately, we're Wooster-less tonight. Moonshine is Wooster. We're doxing him officially today. So, but he won't be joining us, unfortunately. But we do have the insights of Cider to take his place. And Cider, first question is, have you read the book?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then you pass. So you can be here. All right. With that energy and intro.
Off to a good start.
Yep. Yeah. We're already winning here. This is amazing. We've got Cider doing Wooster and Fowler on the stream together. So we'll see how that all works out. Let's see what that energy does. Cancels. But today we're talking about Battle Brick Road. So here's the campaign page for any of you that don't know. So Battle Brick Road was pretty successful early on in CG's trajectory. So one of the earlier campaigns that rose quite a bit of funds. I've got it in euro here. Sorry, having technical difficulties tonight. Why was I looking at this in euro? Can anybody help me understand this?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to dox you, dude. If you're really in Europe or some shit, man, I wasn't gonna mention it.
I want to be Euro. I'm gonna defect. Go to the European Union. Raised 6 figures, young lady. So 102,000 from 1,800 backers. So quite a lot of people excited for this book. Yeah, had an Eric Weathers cover.
That's like $100.
Well read. Not only can you not read, but apparently you're bad at numbers because that clearly says 1864. gosh. It's like you're not even hosting.
It's like I'm not even trying. It's like I'm not
I
even
see that
here.
now if I squint.
Yeah.
Like $50
Jeez.
a bag. That's pretty good though, man.
Yeah. I know I have
This
to
is
be
like a
very
testament
accurate.
to networking in CG. Like we had to acknowledge this what do they say, 6 figures bitch, like from
Yeah.
the fucking day when you would own the SJWs and crack the fucking 100K mark, right? 6 figures bitch. Like that's how we got down. They pussified it when the first layer of censorship started coming into 6 figures, young lady, or whatever
Right.
gay shit
I
they
remember
came up
that.
with. But
I
that shit
remember
is
that.
6 figures, bitch. That's like a bam to the face. And fucking Eric pulled it together to a 6 figures, bitch.
Yep.
By being everybody in the spaces letter. Like, that is an ingenious plan. Like, see a need, fill it type achievement. You know what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
that just needs to be like recognized, I think, because I don't know anybody else who's used their skills helping other people to raise their shit to a 6-figure bitch, man. You know, it's like congratulations on that shit for sure.
Yeah, if people don't know, Eric's background is actually he's CG's letterer, and he can be found on everybody's book pretty much, lettering, and it's an invaluable skill here among indie creators. So definitely a need for good letterers, and Eric has been there. You know, he's stepped up to the plate. Um, I stepped on my own words because I can't read clearly. Earlier, I said this was an Eric Weathers cover. I meant Kenneth Rocafort. Of course, another person who contributes a lot
The
and has
first Kenneth Rocafort too. He's the one who announced, and then that was like, oh wow, Rocafort CG, and it was the big, wave. So
yeah, did Eric like bring Rocafort in? Is that how this happened, or like that's really interesting? I've always wondered like how did he get the debut cover? You
I
know,
think the story goes word was brewing that Rocafort was about to announce, and I believe Eric just hit him up right like early, and Rocafort was interested in it and sent him
Wow.
back that fully, done layout or whatever. You can ask Eric the story when he gets here, man. I'm just retelling a retelling of a retelling, but yeah, man, that was the big announcement. Was like, yo, Rocafort. It's like, whoa, shit, that's dope.
he got him right in that bridge before he became super high demand over here, and he was just in a lull, leaving the mainstream and making his transition. So that's a huge score for Eric, definitely.
Yeah.
Get a Rocafort cover. This isn't Tiger Blue, is it here?
No, that's Lion Green.
Lion Green. What's he lying about? But yeah,
he's lying on the ground. He's lying on the floor. He fought the wrong feline martial artist. That's all.
Exactly. This is a plug for Battle Brick Road too. So Eric is on the ball here. He's
Open
already
the door, get on the floor. Everybody do the dinosaur.
He's
it's been a long time since I heard that.
Very, very long time. Yeah, he's getting his promo out the gate early. So already on this campaign, he's plugging Battle Brick Road 2. So there is going to be a sequel for the book we're reviewing tonight. Spoilers. But the one that we're talking about today is Battle Brick Road 1. It's 80 pages and full color. So who wants to give us the high-level summary? Maybe welcoming him back for the first time in a long time. Fowler, why don't you give us the lowdown? What's Battle Brick Road about?
So we got the public domain Wizard of Oz as the spine of this. I believe initially Eric was calling this thing Operation Zephyr. So OZ, for Oz. And Zephyr, I don't know if you guys know, is like a wind. So the tornado from Oz, I assume. That shit's connected. Maybe. I don't know. I'm just guessing as a reader. Anyway, I don't know if it wasn't getting traction or if as more pros came around, like someone had suggested a name change or whatever, but he rebranded it to the Battle Brick Road, which sounds kind of cool to say, and has that cool gold brick, in the center of the logo. And, then he was off. So it's Call of Duty meets the Wizard of Oz. So you've got Dorothy is kind of a paramilitary Tomb Raider analog, out there fucking shooting, getting it done or whatever, her father's missing. So that, gets into this, like, let's go to the Emerald City type shit. And then they're doing computer codes to follow yellow brick roads. And it's, it's just a paramilitary version of the Wizard of Oz story. And not really in a way like the real Wizard of Oz is about like the banking system and all this crazy shit, right? If you like study it or whatever.
The gold standard.
In a more like Saturday morning cartoon, like very accessible, like to children or teenagers or whatever, like Thundercats kind of take on it, So they're like Dorothy's rootin' tootin' shooting, and the flying monkeys are like cool genetically engineered stuff. And like my favorite part of the book is like a play on that lions and tigers and bears, oh my, line from the movie with this genetically engineered lion, tiger, bear thing. So I mean, it's cool. It's like I put it on that level,
So it's like if Judy Garland had a part in Sly Stallone's Expendables, and she was like one of the characters there. Something like that.
That's fair.
Yeah. So does it actually set up a different dynamic then from what was in The Wizard of Oz? Is this all about Dorothy wanting to find her way home? Or is the mission different this time? What has changed significantly from the Wizard of Oz story to make this an action focused? So
in this version, she's trying to find her dad. She's still trying to get home, but it seems like there's this vague sense that, getting home and finding her dad are connected in some way. We might get into that a bit more in the plot, but it's basically like her dad disappears. She gets a message 20 years later where he's on comms saying, go find the wizard.
Mm-hmm.
So he may be in Oz. He may be the wizard, but
wait a minute.
There's a big father thing here.
You heard Fowler describe this as Call of Duty meets Wizard of Oz, and the next question you have is, how did this differ from the original Wizard of Oz? I don't know. The Scarecrow,
that's a better
the
take.
Fucking sniper rifle? Why don't we start there?
Yeah, just go with what Cider said.
Yeah.
There's a war in Oz, dude. Shit's blowing up. Flying monkeys are ripping dudes in half. Six-legged tigers are ripping. A lot of dudes get ripped in half.
Yeah.
That's like the chief way people die in this war is being ripped in half.
So it's essentially battle royale. Like, are they fighting for the Empire, or what's exactly? Is she a prisoner?
The first issue is like find dad, like is what I assume.
That's the biggest plot
no place
difference.
Like home will
other
be
than
like,
genre difference.
Like no place like home will be like the third act or something. Is the way it feels.
What I got out of this was that when he swapped. See, Eric did this thing where he swapped out. Are we getting into plot now?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Eric did this thing where he swapped out witches for watchers, and what they effectively come off as are these sort of sentient AI guardians that were placed at the four corners of what would be this Earth, and a couple of them have gone rogue, and a war has spiraled out of that.
How dope is that stained glass window of the Watcher?
The cool ass fucking villain line where like the reins of freedom have blistered your minds. It's whoa, that's some cool ass shit, man. Yeah. So like that's what captured me, because I was like, that's some Horizon Zero Dawn shit. Like, we built these AIs to help us, and now they've warped and they're trying to kill us. Worse over, they do the Starro thing, and I don't think the Watcher of the East lets him go pee. I got the impression of that guy that met Dorothy in her escape pod when she fell there that he hadn't been to the bathroom in quite a while. He seemed pretty panicked.
I did get the Starro vibe a little bit from those two.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's a ripoff. It's just a really cool way of using that mechanic. Like, I wouldn't have been like, yeah, Wizard of Oz and Starro. Let's mix those up.
And He-Man did it with the Triclops cult or whatever in that new. I think that's Lovecraftian. Don't quote me on it, but I think those like cults that are controlled by the one central like organism thing, like it is
aliens taking over your mind. That's a way old thing, way back in the Star Trek days.
So what is Oz here? Like a technocratic dystopia, essentially? I see a lot of advanced technology.
Well, no, it's a under domination from like what four factions of witches or so, like 4 of these watchers, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot on the Kansas side of this analogy that's also super high tech and advanced, and in the near future kind of way, including
Kansas
what this panel you're seeing here.
Right. Yeah, I'd say the Kansas is dystopian for sure.
What appears to have happened is some type of spatial rift has occurred here with Oz and Earth. So rather than a tornado being the impetus of getting in and out of Oz, it just seems that it's ripped open, has bled over into Earth, and ecological disasters have claimed the Midwest of America and completely overtaken cities. So what you see here is like some place out in Kansas. Obviously, it's probably Kansas City, Kansas, and these cities.
Chicago, is it? Their headquarters in New Chicago.
New Chicago, okay. And so what you get from this is that the war in Oz, something happened that caused a spatial rift. That's how Dorothy gets over there. Like her whole crew gets over there, but they get killed by a fucking flying ape, and she's the only one who gets away. So it's not like there's just one chosen one that gets through the portal. And clearly it goes both ways because a flying monkey destroys her carrier ship that ends up starting this whole adventure.
And it opens on that monkey scene, like cinema en res or whatever they call it. Like you start with the action right away in that.
Yeah, they've got you're probably wondering how I got here kind of opener.
Yep.
Does it let up?
Which is smart.
Does it just keep the action going throughout the whole book? Do we get a lot of character development, or is it just mainly Call of Duty Battle Royale? Echoing back to the earlier analogy.
No, there's a lot of character stuff because it feels like cinemas in between a video game where you would, do the shooting part. So like they're in the city and talking for a while, and then that's when all these cult members come around, right? And it's like that would be the part in the game where you shoot 40 cult members and then proceed inside the temple or what. It's got a little bit of that type cinema scene from a video game feel, but I don't know.
You see, where you described it as Call of Duty, I felt more Fallout. I felt more like this was like Oz and Fallout put together. The only reason why I draw that distinction is because Fallout deliberately tries to create a dystopic RPG.
Right.
They try to create an environment where you are the last hope, but you don't know it and nobody else does. So that's how Dorothy's kind of pitched here, is that she's here to get her dad, and the other people in Oz are like, yo, you're the only one who can do this shit with your flying dog. So, hey, can you help us? And she's like, no, I got to find my dad. Screw you. See you later. Because again, she doesn't believe she's special. They believe she is. And until she flips the special switch, I mean, that's where I get the Fallout analogy, is that, you're just a dude in the wasteland until you aren't.
And you mentioned your dog. Let's give props to Toto. I liked Toto. The idea of like a cybernetic assistant instead of the dog. It's fully weaponized. It fit in with the whole style he's going for. And Toto carries like a lot of R2D2 flavor in this book, like beep boop beep boop, and then she answers the incoherent beeps, and so it kind of, I like the way that plot device was used. So then when she wants to explain some shit, she just talks to this thing that doesn't really answer. It worked to get you through a lot of this. I don't know, really want to call them information dumps, but when you need to know what was going on a little bit, it's a good device organically for her to be talking to her. Like in Snatcher, you talk to the Metal Gear or ask it whatever. It's just a good thing to have with you, can back you up. in
Can we talk
situations
about
and
the like, because the scripts, the idea, like on paper, I like Toto, but the visual here, I like this is probably, because I liked the book. This is probably like the harshest criticism I can give, is that it's literally, it's a sphere. There is nothing to hold on to visually with this. There's no face. There's literally a dot, which I guess lets us know the direction the robot's looking. But there's no personality. Like there's no like Wall-E type, you know,
you need
human
eyebrows
analog.
so it can emote. It can't
Yeah.
emote really. Like I
It
kinda get
can't
what you're
give
saying.
you anything. It's just a ball, and that's a tough thing. I have no idea why he wanted to go with the ball, because he's got a lot of really good character, like sci-fi-ish character design type ideas that he explores. This whole thing is full of like really, you know, designs that pop, and the sphere, like the white, like the I don't know, you know,
Well-
even the Castaway volleyball like had a face on it, and this is like, it just doesn't do
Well,
it for me.
To be honest, aside from the floating part, and of course the floating not attached weapon arsenals, it really gave me Lost in Space robot vibes. Although he didn't talk right, that's where I got it from. I didn't read robot R2D2 there. I got the Lost in Space robot, the Danger Will Robinson robot out of that. And I think that's probably where he was going by just making it like a, you know, a featureless sphere, kind of like how the Lost in Space robot doesn't have
A rigid personality.
Right, and without the language, combining the R2D2 in there, it limits it to being dog-like in that the responses are sort of left to your interpretation. Because Dorothy clearly is not understanding what Toto means with those beeps. She's just sort of thinking out loud at Toto. Toto takes her commands. Toto takes her commands, but it's not meant to be a conversational thing. Because again, those beeps are not, we don't get a subtitle with those. So that's not meant to be a two-way conversation for us, the reader, which means she's not having a conversation with Toto. At least that's what that says to me, is that she's thinking out loud at the robot.
Well, she's talking to the reader, but pretending she's talking to Toto.
Correct. And that's what I get out of that, is that it's not a two-way conversation.
Well, so it's been mentioned a couple of times that the whole setup here is her trying to save her father in Oz, but why exactly is her father there, and who's keeping him?
He's the wizard.
Oh,
he's got to be, right. Yeah.
That's the only clue I get, because when
we got
Toto
three
did
writers
the
here.
did the flashlight thing at the building tower obelisk thing, and then it was like that. This is the way to the wizard. The wizard's still alive. You're the chosen one. You could save Oz. And she's like, I got to save my dad. And I was like, oh, I get it.
I ran into a lot of, I would have done it this way, or I would have done this when I was reading this, and I had to like throttle that a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because like,
sure,
I would have started like all of Kansas would have been like black and white ink wash, Zipatone shit. You know, like a total different. You know, like the movie, man. It starts in black and white, and then it's like Technicolor, bam. You know, and you know, how in the movie, like the people in the real world kind of echo the people in her Oz dream. You know, like the Tin Man and all those people are just the farm hands and shit in the real world or whatever. There wasn't like that connectivity in the story, but like I said,
that's true. We're probably not going to get that, are we? Because everybody else got eaten by flying gorillas.
Right, yeah, like red shirts, I call them, you know, like in Star Trek or whatever. Most of the crew was red shirts, not really like I said, like, wait, that guy is the Scarecrow, or you know, type shit. And like the other thing was like they're not going to get the brain and the heart and the, you know, type shit so far, you know. So I'm a little bit hung up on the movie, I get, you know, so I had to let that go too, you know. And then once I'm like, this is what it is, this is video game thing, like this is, I got into it, you know. It was pretty cool. So
I mean, that's fair, because there's multiple ways to adapt Oz, right? There's the message, I get, like there's the heartbeat of Oz. And in some ways that's still here. There's still a girl who wants to get home. and reconnect with her reality, and she saves the world in the process. But then there's the aesthetics, I guess, like it comes with its own package of visual tropes that are very recognizable and very sellable, very outward facing. It's smart of him to kind of say, I'm gonna do something like this, I'm gonna work with an existing IP. And it looks like he felt like there's enough of a twist here with blending genres that I can just take the tropes, the visual tropes of Oz, and mix them with Call of Duty, and I don't have to worry about the that layered symbolism, I guess, in the original. And there's no William Howard Taft analog.
Yeah.
I don't think any of that's going to happen either. So it's a decision.
I thought the wizard was Mark Twain this whole time. I didn't know it was Taft. How did he fit in the balloon?
Yeah.
So a lot of the Oz homages, it sounds like, or references, are essentially aesthetic wise.
Yeah.
I guess
when they hit good though. Like when the lion, tiger, bear, oh my fucking genetic monstrosity attacks him in the cornfield. It's like I laughed out like in a good way. Like, oh, that's great. That because I don't know, the way you took that silly song or whatever and then made it into this terrifying threat to end the second issue or whatever. I liked it, man. I thought that was a cool take on it.
Mm-hmm. Do you get the Tin Man, Lion, and Scarecrow? Are they part of the story?
Yeah, but
they're trickling them
manner.
out. Yeah.
In an implied way, not in the traditional expected manner. Like the Scarecrow is clearly the sniper you see in the cover that we saw a little earlier, and then the Tin Man is clearly his companion. Which, for some reason, he's flat on his back on the road they're walking at the end of the story. So I guess maybe the next issue picks us up there. And we see some art here also in the thing of a lion wearing of a man lion rather wearing like a. Forgive me, I don't mean this in a derogatory manner, but he's kind of dressed like the Scorpion King. And so I figure that will be our courageous lion that kicks the ass of these genetic weirdos that were made of his brethren.
He doesn't look cowardly at all.
No, there's no. If he had a shirt on, maybe, but he doesn't have his shirt on.
So what about Dorothy, like as a protagonist here?
Laura Croft.
Laura Croft, basically.
Yep. Yeah, okay. Well, it's not bad either because like that archetype is kind of difficult to pull off, especially when you're dealing with a kind of an apocalyptic scenario because she's a secret finder. And in the middle of an apocalypse, Lara Croft isn't exactly the most useful person. She notices the tiny details, but you got to pay attention to grenades and RPGs and cannon fire. That's what's important in a war zone. And so the kind of Lara Croft nature is sort of a foil for the other characters that are trying to survive. You see, so Dorothy is sort of, in the beginning, kind of acting against her own best interest by searching the mystery of her father instead of focusing on survival.
Yeah, she's breaking protocol and rules for her organization that she's in, and angering her supervisor in this pursuit of her dad. You know, she's always like on side missions to investigate and find out like where he is and how to get in there and stuff. So, yeah, she never stopped looking for him for the 20 years they talk about. She's been kind of like obsessed with it, I guess.
Did they? Sorry, go ahead, Cider.
I was going to say, I mean, you see the environment she's in? It's not going to the roller rink on Saturdays, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, so she's in this situation. She should be trying to survive, but she's instead looking for her dad. Like, are her motivations kind of presented well? Like, is it believable, or do you feel like they're just trying to tell a certain kind of story, have her go through a certain kind of plot that they want her to be able to get to a particular point in the story or conflict?
I didn't get that. I got that this was part of the structure of Dorothy's arc, her growth, that she's going to continue pursuing this until, like, now that she's in Oz and continuing to do this, she's going to most likely endanger the Scarecrow, and that's going to change her because he saved her life. So that's going to like create sort of an impetus for her to change and mature a little beyond just being totally focused on her father. At least that's how I read into it, that this was like her starting point.
What do you think, Matt C? Did you like the Dorothy character in this story?
Yeah, well, I think particularly if the characters, if you're not doing that Kansas clown mirror world version in Oz, and you're not doing like how the movie did it, then just saying I want to go home is probably not a strong enough motivation in a comic. And it doesn't feel, and frankly, to take up a legacy IP like this and then just take that same hook, movie hook that's 80 years old, like I don't know, it probably wouldn't be interesting enough. So I'm glad he at least took her prime motivation and well, and just as an aside, so this wouldn't be Eric, I don't think, because the writer is someone else. Trying to find out who this guy was. Yeah. I don't recognize his name, but the writer did a good and interesting idea of sometimes you kind of need something that's a little more visual than home for comics, so like making the dad be home in a sense, personifying and personalizing home in that way, I think is a smart tactic that's better for books. I mean, for comic books in particular. So yeah, it's as strong as a motivation as the movie, but it's been adapted intelligently for comics.
Darko doesn't like her freckles. Where do you guys stand on freckles? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
I'm pro freckle.
Yeah, same. I don't mind Dorothy being a magnificent freckle beast.
How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I actually didn't. I didn't notice it till you mentioned it. They're on the subtle side, so.
I'm team freckles also. Freckles can be hot. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Darko. Sorry, you got outvoted by the panel. So get better tastes or better hot takes. All right. What about Oz, the world? I guess they're doing a little world building here. They're trying to redefine that environment. Is it unique and interesting? Does it still feel like the magical place from the source material? Or has it turned into something completely new that maybe is too unfamiliar and not as interesting? I'll let any.
Well, like Fowler said, we've got a for what it's worth, it's a really richly it's desert, but it's a richly colorful Kansas, and then we move from that to a verdant jungly Oz, and there's less contrast there than you'd see in the movie, so maybe that feels like a downgrade in a way, but that's a challenge too. Are you going to make the first 15 pages of your comic, relatively boring to sell that contrast? Or are you going to square that circle by just saying it's going to, Kansas looks super awesome too. It's just a desert. So just speaking to the contrast there, he sells it as pretty cool. Like, I guess the big difference that Dorothy notices is that it's green, because she lives in a world where there's been some sort of ecological collapse, similar to the Dust Bowl that's alluded to in the movie.
Desert.
Yeah, the Great American Desert, which is a cool idea. I think that's on page 1. So,
have any of you read the original Wizard of Oz?
So funny story.
My first
fiance was the second great granddaughter of the original author.
Oh,
yeah.
Interesting.
L. Frank Baum.
Yep.
Lots
and
of
I never
conversations.
heard the motherfucking end of it. Okay, never.
The total main story there.
Yeah.
I mean,
With
they
me-
do get into some of the original stuff because the slippers are silver in the original, and the witch that would have the ruby slippers is all like liquid metal silver in this one. So, I guess it's kind of like
That's
the
true.
source material in some ways too. So
Well, world building was a big part of the original story. Just besides the Emerald City, there was also like the China City that they had to go through after they were leaving. She didn't click her ruby slippers to get home. She had to go through the world of Oz. So I was just wondering, like, how much did it draw on that original material here?
I thought the field isn't in the book. There's like a field that lulls you to sleep or something.
poppies. Yeah.
Yes.
Bobby's that sounds
And I
about
was
right.
I was thinking maybe the lions, tigers, bears. Like I was like, okay, we're gonna do that field, and then they gave us lions, tigers, bears. So maybe
no.
that's like an approximation because that's not in the movie, right? So they're playing with that too. I think of like a threatening field because the scarecrow's field in the movie, I don't think is anything at all. It's just an excuse for the scarecrow to show up.
It's just a fork in the road as far as the
Yeah.
visuals are concerned. Anyway,
Yeah, and she gets
this-
silver bullets that are her silver shoes rather than the ruby
hold
slippers.
on, that are made out of the Watcher of the East that she used her gun to shoot the support mechanism underneath one of the pods to crush. So that's very much like the original story where a house killed the Wicked Witch of the East, and a something purposeful for Dorothy was created from it or passed on. I did want to say this about the plot and how things were handled here. This is very much like anime and manga treats stuff from the West. I appreciate this because I grew up with anime and manga. So what this does is it takes the original concept, the names, identities, the gist of it, and then runs it through an entirely different genre, basically. And so that's what you get here is you get the spirit of the Wizard of Oz. So their names and ideas and concepts, they're sort of the same, but then it's a wildly different genre from the original concept. And so honestly, I would recommend that Eric say something about manga or anime in the advertisements going forward about this, because it really feels like it could sit alongside manga offerings. It feels very anime-y, really. I would expect this to come out of Madhouse. Those are the guys who did Hellsing and One Punch Man and what was that last one? Red Line.
Oh, Red Line was dope.
Yeah, this would look great in their style, but this really feels like an anime.
So in a lot of
Dorothy
ways,
got hit by a truck and sent to Oz. It's the only thing that's missing here.
yeah, a lot of ways it sounds like it isn't Wizard of Oz. Like it's just something totally new.
Which is good, but it's still the same a bit,
Mhm.
People like to point out, I guess the original is like an isekai, right? In a way,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
it's
maybe the
built
first.
for that,
Well, I guess we should touch on the art a little bit, before moving on to the interview. So, what did you guys think of the sequencing here and the level of detail? Does he maintain this interesting dynamic paneling throughout the story, or are there areas where you felt like it was off a little? Give me your overall perspectives. Matthew Feller, you've been quiet. Let's hear from you.
Eric's been improving constantly, right? So the stuff he was doing in Flying Fortress, right, was nowhere near as interesting as the stuff he was doing when he's at his best in this one. The monkey cover where they're flying through the air is a level above. There's some pages that are just like really solid, so I'd like to ask him what order he drew it in, and know for sure if it was drawn chronologically or just kind of hopped around, because there's some stuff in here that's so much better than other stuff in here, right? And the stuff I've seen about book 3 is even better than the best stuff in this one. So it's like he's growing as an artist. So I'm looking forward to book 2. This one had some really good moments, but it also had some really wonky stuff. Like her boobs floating and smushed in a weird, like, just on some weird angles. Some stuff was wonky, but I didn't buy it, so I'm not going to weave through it with that same fine tooth comb as I would do other stuff, like I enjoyed it, without having to worry about the investment or the waiting or, I had none of the negatives that come with supporting a project like this, had I waited and paid X amount, I might be more critical, but I'm into what Eric's doing, and I'm definitely going to actually buy the second book, like just based off what I read on this one. So that's where I'm at with the art. It's improving very dramatically, almost, I'd say.
Cider, you wanted to jump in? You had opinions?
I just wanted to say that the expressions are on point throughout this whole thing. Like, there may be some times where they're a little smushed because they're tiny, but man, I know what everybody's thinking throughout this book. It is not hard to tell, especially the people being ripped in half. They're thinking, ow, I'm being ripped in half.
What about the designs here? Do you think that they nail it for the world aesthetic that they're going for, especially if they're referencing Wizard of Oz?
I want to say that the blue scarf is meant to be analogous to Dorothy's dress, or the bow in her hair, perhaps. I want to say that's meant to symbolize that, but the design, the Scarecrow, again, you get the idea that he's the Scarecrow, but honestly bears more of a semblance to Ragman. Is that the name of the guy that's made out of cloth that sends people to Shadow Realm?
The Flash villain. Yeah.
Ragman. Yeah, he bears more of a resemblance to the Ragman than he does to the Scarecrow, but I knew immediately that was the Scarecrow when he showed up. You know what I mean? So the design spoke to the intent, but it's a little too Ragman.
I just saw Overwatch.
Oh,
but that's kind of that's something I'd like to ask Eric about. I get I have a theory. I have a theory that the cover artist, I'm already forgetting his name,
Kenneth
the Cuban
Rocafort.
guy who did the awesome, Rocafort.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that Rocafort pitched. Maybe I have some half-remembered live stream memory that I'm reaching for with this, but I have a feeling that he drew Scarecrow that early on before Eric got to those pages, and he was like, "That looks dope. That's going in the comic. I'm doing it just like that." Because Rocafort does that sort of thing. He knows how to, like, he draws robots that way. He he likes putting a cape on a robot, with a sniper rifle. Like that tells me, like, you don't even have to show me the art, and I know that's like a Rocafort thing. It doesn't feel like a Eric Weathers thing, just from what I know from Flying Fortress. So I feel like he intelligently, like, it's very smart of him. He kind of like upgraded maybe some of his ideas based off Rocafort's early pinup stuff that he used for the covers. But like stuff like other characters that Rocafort didn't touch, it does feel more like what Eric Weathers does, so like the more grounded designs, like you see here, just cargo pants and a scarf.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. That's the theory, but it's good art. It's funny, like Flying Fortress, the lore as I remember it is he was drawing that for like years.
Oh, I got it. No,
you tell me.
The Scarecrow has always been like this by Eric Weathers. I just pulled up the poster of that Operation Zephyr, like the original ad and shit from a long time ago before.
Oh, good find.
Battle Brick Road, and no, it's the lion dude, the droid Tin Man. He's got those like running legs, like when people get their,
the blades
prosthetic. Yeah. I was gonna say like the guy who killed his girlfriend, but different.
Yeah, that guy.
Right. And yeah, Scarecrow's
Oscar.
there with the full cloak.
Velociraptor legs.
silencer, cloak, rifle, everything. It's there
Okay.
in the original design. So
Do you have a poster?
Rockefeller just made it look ridiculously fresh, dude. Because I remember seeing that, like, it was just so textured with the like little ripness of the cloak and all that. That Rockefeller shit is dope, man.
Do you have something you could share with us? Like, is it on your computer, or do you need? Can you show?
I
turn
just
on your
Googled.
camera?
I just Googled Operation Zephyr comic on my phone, and it's right there.
All right. I'll
Smart.
do some work.
Well, just because I was thinking, like, no, I'm pretty sure that Scarecrow was on that cover, but I wasn't 100%, so check it. It is, man.
One last, like, a small thing about the art is it's amazing. The art I really like, and just seeing the arc of growth in what Eric can do, and seeing him genuinely pushing himself to his limits with these pages is really exciting, and that means more to me than like a super talented artist just kind of resting on laurels and drawing safe stuff within his wheelhouse. It doesn't feel like Eric ever did that with any of these pages, which is great. And then the coloring is pro. And it's amazing to see when you have you have the drawer, the line work person who's really pushing himself to his limits as an indie guy, and then you have a pro colorer show up and flesh that out. You get something really special, I think, which just makes what Eric works really hard at to achieve here go over the top. So okay, so there you go.
And I remember he had strict control over the coloring too, because he printed locally and would go to the printing place and like work with the people on several test pages and drafts and stuff. I remember
That's nice.
him on social media talking about the process. So maybe ask him about that stuff too. But yeah, the local printing allowed for that extra control of the color and the final product.
So I think the last question I'm going to ask before I get your final opinions on the book is the chat's dying to know, what about the Oompa Loompas? Any word on the Lollipop Guild?
They call the cult members from the Starro sort of brainwash cult thing when the evil silver witch bitch is fucking like degrading them or whatever. I believe she calls them munchkins. So I guess that's about as close as you're gonna get to dancing midgets, man.
Oh
yeah.
So were Oompa Loompa denied in this book?
They were not this high, so they couldn't get on the ride, I guess.
Right. They weren't tall enough to get on Battle Brick Road. Yeah.
Definitely gonna have to push Eric when he comes on to maybe give them a little cameo, a little love in the second book. So
yeah, a little like musical, side quest.
Yeah, because that's what comics need. Music.
Yeah, exactly. First comic musical ever. Final impressions, guys. Let's start with you, Matt.
Fowler or C?
Oh yeah, little fake out there. Matt C.
Yeah. When it comes to stuff like this, I really want to see like effort. I think means more to me than quality. Sometimes it means as much as quality. I'll say that. And I really think the writer showed up and made a really strong script, even though it gets a little like, I always worry with these things where it's like, oh, they're going to do the thing. They're going to say the thing that I know from the first version of this story because it's a legacy IP. And it was artfully, he kind of danced us through those moments, I think, in ways that weren't cringe, which I'm grateful for. And the art really pushes itself to the limit, frankly, and it's better than it's definitely better than more than half the stuff on my shelf from the past couple of years. So it's definitely worth it.
Cool. Matt too. What's your take?
Bless you.
Thank you.
Fowler the Prowler. I'm sorry.
All right, so I give this one I I'll probably buy the second one and check it out, man. I'm interested in seeing where he goes with this adventure. And like I said, when I was talking specifically about the art, his improvement rate is really rapid. So I'm looking forward to book 2. You know, it's probably going to be, you know, super fucking cool, you know, with the lion and all that. The more type of visceral elements to the story, like combat and shit like that. Like, it seems like they're not going to throttle back on that. You know, they're going to keep going. So I'm in.
Cool. And Cider.
As I said earlier in the review, this did what I love about anime. It took a concept and elevated it somewhere that you wouldn't really think of, not even when you're taking a really long poop. And that's really my favorite part about this, is that it feels like something I can see on Adult Swim. Like I'm 14 years old in front of the television again. Like, whoa, that's supposed to be Dorothy? That's the Scarecrow has a sniper rifle? That was my first reaction when I saw the Scarecrow, because I didn't know. I didn't know. I thought that was a cool guy. But when I finally understood like the context that was a Scarecrow, that was fucking cool. He blasts the head off that monster. That was awesome. And see, my brain would have never been like the Scarecrow that does the yippity skippity dance on the yellow brick road back in the 30s would be toting a sniper rifle. And I love that. And that's what I love about this. It carries that spirit of anime that is like on the verge of getting too far away from the original source material, but it honors it just enough that you feel the roots of it in there. That, yeah, maybe the Tin Man would have a sniper rifle. Maybe he'd have a laser axe. Maybe he'd kill a motherfucker. Maybe the Tin Man would kill a motherfucker. I like it.
Nice. Battlebrick Road, a book you'll enjoy pooping with. So
that's not what I meant.
All right, everybody. On that note, let's bring on the creator, the driving force, and CG's most indispensable letterer. Please welcome Eric Weathers.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, what's up, man?
Hello.
Hey,
what's
what's
up, guys?
Great to have you with us, Eric. Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
People were really interested a lot in the inspirations you guys drew and directions you went with this story. So I think the panel has a lot of questions. I'll let them take it over for just a little while, and I'll step away for a cup of coffee. So, guys, do you have questions for Eric?
I'll start with the obvious one. Why the choice to not do Kansas in black and white? Because I guess
too obvious.
All right.
It's
makes sense,
I strived very much to not make you think about Wizard of Oz when you're reading the book, but to have moments where you're like, oh yeah, this is a Wizard of Oz book, not like this is a Wizard of Oz book. When are they going to say there's no place like home? It was writing the line of that whole, the theme of the book, the way the characters act, their motivations, the designs down to the color choices of and the layout designs of the book itself, like logo and all of that. Like I want it to stand on its own and not look like any other Oz derivative thing, because it's always whimsical and magical and goofy and green and yellow. And we're taking all of that away, and we're putting dirt and grit and blood and heart and character and love into it.
Hell yeah.
So what made you I'm interested in the production, like the team that got assembled here, and your decision, I'm guessing it's your decision, you'll correct me, to not write this and just run the line work and the lettering.
Yeah, so years ago I was wrapping up. I had just finished Flying Fortress. It was about 2016. And I thought, I don't want to do comics anymore. I still want to draw, so I started painting, digital painting, and I was thinking about if I could do concept art and all of that. And I was watching a live stream by one of my favorite artists, and his name's Dave Raposa, and he was talking about how artists, like my idea was like, I'll make something. I'll make like an art book, like it's my version of whatever it is, and I'll make an art book of it, and that'll be like a portfolio piece. And on this live stream, somebody was talking about that, and he was answering that. He's answering to that, and he said, people that do that are only really, their audience is only other artists. So if you have a story you want to tell it, whether it's a comic book, a game, a board game, trading cards or whatever, but just tell the story so that you reach a broader audience. And having done Flying Fortress and the conventions, I'm very much about trying to reach an audience. I don't just make art just to make it. It's not anything of this scale. I don't just do it just because I want to do it. I do it because I want to entertain somebody. I want to tell a story to somebody other than me. So I had percolated this idea of, what if I took the Wizard of Oz and made it a video game? And I liked the Battlefield series, the class-based system. I thought, they'll line up that way because you've got a gunner, a heavy gunner, a sniper, and an engineer, and it all sort of worked. So I thought, well, that's cool. And I was starting to do concept art for that as if it were a portfolio piece. And then I heard that thing about make it a story. And I said, okay, I guess I'm making a comic book again. So I had written a few treatments, a few just sort of like world building things. It was very, very, very grounded, where like the Yellow Brick Road would have been like, a drug running cartel stuff. And Emerald City was,
like Silk Road, kind of, but yellow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And like the Emerald City would have been like Seattle. So then how do you make that sales run? But it was really very real, very grounded. And then in about 2017, summer of 2017, I met Zeb, who ultimately is now the writer. And he said he had just we met in person at an event at our church, and he had just started going there. And I had just lettered his book, and I didn't know who he was. And that was actually my first professional lettering gig. Was his book? It was called Frankennaut, and it was just local guys. Like he lives here in Wichita, and he was working on it with another friend. So like we had this mutual friends, but we had never met each other. And then come to find out, he had even come to my table a couple years prior, and when I was selling Flying Fortress, and he bought a book and got my business card and all. Anyways,
small world.
Yeah, exactly. And so we connected, and I was like, you know what? I've got this idea. I want to do another comic. And I had two ideas, and one of them was Oz. And I said, let's do something. And let's make a story together. And I gave him both of my ideas, and he picked the Wizard of Oz. And we thought, oh, this will be easy. It wasn't. Not at all. Yeah, famous last words. This will be easier than the other one because you think, okay, there's source material to pull from. We don't have to make it all up. And that's been the thread that the tightrope we've been trying to walk ever since. But yeah, I brought him on, and he wrote, iteration after iteration, a lot of back and forth about characters and plot points and story beats and things like that. Where do we end this, and how do we, lots and lots and lots of stuff. So he fleshed out the world based off of the book. He was a contractor at the time, so he had the Wizard of Oz on audiobook, and he would listen to it while he painted and installed light fixtures and stuff over and over again. So he like drank that in, and I stayed as far away from it as possible because I know the movie, and I didn't want, and I still don't want, anything in the book to influence me outside of what he's written, if that makes sense. So I don't want to, I'm trying to stay away from other people's interpretations of things so that I can bring a fresh point of view, my eye to it, my sensibilities artistically, even in the story beats that we talk about, like how could we change this or make it bigger or whatever. So his goal is to sort of maintain the very, very bare bones skeleton of that Wizard of Oz novel, and I'm injecting all of the badass stuff I can.
Mhm.
And that's sort of how we thread this needle.
Hitting those portfolio ideals that you wanted straight from the beginning, but now you've got like a narrative backbone to play against.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Absolutely.
Now we had some question.
So, sorry, one small thing. Now that you mentioned Raposa, I haven't thought about Raposa in years, but his stuff reminds me of Roquefort in a way. I don't know, like at least the robots and stuff, they've got a similar aesthetic. So it's neat that you met up with Roquefort for this.
Yeah, and that was just happenstance too. Like that's CG lore now. So yeah.
Sorry, Cider.
No, I was just pointing out that we had some questions about Toto. We didn't quite get why he was the robot Toto is a sort of a doesn't have a face rather, and why
I
it's
liked
a ball.
Toto, and Matt C wanted to know why Toto sucked, man.
Listen, we got to bring some tension to this. We can't agree on everything. So yeah, what's your reasoning for the spherical Toto?
Because I can just draw a circle.
Yeah,
there it is, ladies and gentlemen.
There's no wrong answer. It's just
he was never intended to be a dog, and never in any of the iterations of any of the concepts. I was never planning on drawing a dog. The original concept was he would have been more of a drone, like network, sort of non-sentient, but just a thing that Dorothy could use. So like she would have like a heads-up display thing on her visor or on her wrist, like the Predator has on his arm, and she could throw the drone up and get like a survey of the battlefield and know like where the enemies are. So it was a tactical tool. And then after several iterations, it was like, okay, no, he needs to be a character that can. I don't think I did this well, but the idea of his design is the sphere, but those wings originally, the idea behind it was I could show more emotion from him, and I'm getting better as I draw more of him, it would be like a dog's ears, like a floppy dog's ears. So if he's sad or whatever, they're drooping down. If he's excited,
I picked that up in some
air.
panels. Yeah, you were doing that.
Okay. So, well, that's good. But yeah, so then it was like, okay, well, we wanted to give him more of a character arc other than, biting the witch's ankles or whatever. So you're going to see a lot more of him in what he's capable of. I like to equate him to like, he's our sort of R2D2.
Forgot that little.
Not
one of us got that.
Yeah. So yeah, more to come, and hopefully by the end of it, everybody's got a satisfying character arc. Even the robot that doesn't have a face. I guess both of them don't have faces, but Toto specifically.
We have questions in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how to read some of these. Okay, so Twitless, let's suffer through this. He asks, L. Frank Baum writes in his intro to Oz that he wishes to dispense with disagreeable incident, as that aspect of fairy tales is not necessary in modern America. Dispense with disagreeable incident. So that seems contrary to the themes that were at play in your interpretation of The Wizard of Oz. What's your take on what was inspiring Frank Baum when he wrote his story and the direction that you decided to go with your book?
I don't know. I haven't read The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, okay. That's your answer, Twitless.
Yeah. I'll say this right now. I am not well read.
I'm not
again,
well read either.
That was Zeb. So that would be a question that he could answer.
Yeah. I only play well read on YouTube. I am not an actual well read.
Excellent. Yeah.
All this points out ignoring the actual source material seems to be the opposite of not being influenced by interpretations. So I think that answers that as well. Darko says, does Toto have a secret form?
Stay tuned.
That's cool.
As well read. Thank you. Exactly. What drew you to making comics? I'm curious to go back a little bit since this is your second work. You did Flying Fortress initially.
Yeah.
Why touch on this source material, and why get into the medium to begin with? So.
I'm not sure why I wanted to make comics, but I do. I'm one of the few. I don't read them. I look at them. I'm way more interested. I've read comic books. Not to say that I don't read them, but for me, it was always artwork 10 times more important than anything else. It didn't matter what the story was to me. I was there for who was drawing the books, and I actually kind of still am. So I was just really inspired when I was 14, 15, 16 years old by artists like Jim Lee and Brett Booth and all of that. And there were, and it was right around the time, I mean, Wizard Magazine was still around and big at the time.
Oh yeah,
I
if you
had-
couldn't get into Wizard Magazine, you couldn't sell your comics, but that was like the be all end all advertising for the key demographic, man. All the kids were picking up Wizard, man.
Yeah, Wizard, and then at the time, like I didn't know how to draw. I just knew that I was the artist at school, so it was like if there was a project, Eric, can you draw this for me? That kind of stuff. And at the time, I had the internet, so there were a couple of places where you could learn. Scott McDaniel had a blog. I think it's actually still up if his website's still going. DC artist, Nightwing artist Scott McDaniel. He had like how to draw comics, and that's sort of where I fell in. At the time, that was really the only artwork style that was accessible, and for me that I knew about. There was a lot of stuff going on that I just wasn't aware of. I grew up in the Great Plains. I grew up in small town Kansas, so all the cool.
So you weren't even painting yet or anything then?
No, I was just doodling.
So comics first, then the paint. Because I've seen some of your like paintings of airplanes and stuff. It's pretty good stuff, man.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I had drawn for forever, and I never touched. I was always afraid to paint and never touched it. And I didn't start painting until that 2016 time when I was like, I think I'll try painting. So I'm still new to it. I still don't do it as much as I want to, but I don't know. There was that inspiration of seeing just this, what I thought was killer artwork. And it was just inspiring because I love to draw, and I thought I can do this. Well, people make comic books, and maybe I could draw comic books. And I think that's kind of how it started. And then very, very, very quickly realized just how difficult it was. And was always, and still am always, pushing up against a comfort zone. And I don't think I think that's just my MO, is to push up again. People have said that my style has improved a lot, and I think it's because I'm always pushing that boundary, and I'm never, ever, 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 ever satisfied with anything I draw.
That gets us to one question we had during the review. Did you draw the pages out of order?
No.
You just went straight line, page one, day one, and then all the way through? Because I was seeing improvements, but like I wasn't sure, and then there was some kind of experimental stuff like the silhouetted monster on the double page spread, not the big panel, but the one underneath it. That's like real Hellboy looking and almost different. It's so cool. That was one of my favorite panels. I made a note here to mention that specific panel, So I was wondering, seeing the different kind of styles, if you had drawn it out of order. But you're saying
so. Generally, it was straightforward. Page one was actually the last page drawn, though. We had we had changed some stuff around, and we thought we need a new page one because the opening doesn't make sense. So, because of that adjustment that we had made, so I drew page one. There were a few pages that were drawn that got thrown out at early stages, but generally, yeah, it was start to finish, but some of them got, like I said, rearranged.
Okay.
Chapter 1 is drawn traditionally. I did layouts on the computer and then penciled everything. And then chapter 2, I did digital pencils and then inked everything traditionally. So there's a visual, and that is another. I try to be subtle with that stuff. Subtle nod to old black and white Kansas to colorful Oz was the opening chapter is pencils only, and chapter 2 and when she's in Oz is inked. I don't know if I answered questions properly. I feel like I've jumped around a little bit, but
No, it makes it that 2-page spread where she's doing the sniper thing.
Mhm.
Fucking just looks fucking awesome, man. Good shit.
thank you. Yeah, I have a reference photo in my Google Photos somewhere of me in that pose to try and get that just right. So,
Nice.
but I'm fully clothed, I promise.
Yeah,
You
it
don't
sounds
know
like
nowadays, man. You never know.
What do you think? My camera's off.
it sounds like you did find like the right medium though to do what you love. If your thing
Yeah.
is drawing the books and doing that artistic visual representation, you're in a very good position here to continue to do that. So
Thank you.
you're also a man who knows men. You're connected all throughout CG as the go-to person for lettering. How did
Yes.
you fall into that role?
Sheer luck by getting John Malin's attention. I did say earlier that I had sort of professionally lettered my first book. That was Zeb's, and that's true. And it was the first, because I had lettered all of Flying Fortress, and in the process of making that book, when I got to the lettering step, because I did everything, pencils, inks, colors, letters, very little help with that. And when I was done with coloring, lettering was a relief because I hate coloring. I don't like it, which is ironic because I love to paint. So I don't know what's going on there. But
Somebody hold back, Matt C.
Yeah, let me at him now.
So I did that job. I thought, well, I could do this. I can letter. I like it. I feel like I'm pretty good at it. And then 2017, 2018, whenever Graveyard Shift was active, John put a call out on Twitter for letterers to submit work, and he wasn't really specific. John wasn't very specific back then. All he said, I mean, he was specific in what he wanted. He said, "Want a '90s Spawn style," but that's all the help he gave was, "Can you letter? Can you do it in the Tom Warzakowski '90s Spawn style? Go." And there was no script. There was nothing. So I pulled a page from the campaign and threw it into Illustrator and pulled lyrics from One by Metallica and just put them in those panels to try to make them look like this is what the characters are saying. It didn't really matter what they were saying. But I put caption boxes and balloons and burst balloons and things like that. Just sort of pulled out all the stops. And he and Mark both pulled me out of the hat or whatever. And
that was before Jawbreakers?
Yeah. So I got Graveyard Shift and I was lettering. I was like 10 pages into that.
Okay.
And Richard had put a tweet out back when he was on Twitter about how he started lettering Graveyard Shift or Jawbreakers. And it looked horrible.
You clowned on him, right?
I did. I emailed him right away and I was like, I have the email somewhere, but I emailed him and I was like, hey, I just got hired by John Malin, who was also drawing Jawbreakers, for anybody that doesn't know,
Right.
to letter a Graveyard Shift. And I saw your post on Twitter, and bad lettering could really kill a book, and I'd love to be able to not have bad lettering on Jawbreakers. So
that's nagging. They call that nagging in the pimp game.
We back and forth for 3 or 4 emails, and then I was hired. And those 2 books, I mean, those were the biggest books at the time, and 2 of the biggest books at the time, and that just became, I was just the letterer. So all the jobs came in.
When did lettering evolve into pre-press? Because I know you've hooked a few people up with some pre-press stuff too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Pretty early on, because I had done.
I mean, I
somewhat-
know the blurry letters of Jawbreak. You know what I'm saying? Was it?
Yeah, and
were
that
you
wasn't
involved
actually
with that or whatever.
No,
you
that
know?
wasn't me.
Not to beat a dead horse or whatever, but I mean,
No, that's fine. Actually, it's nice to be able to talk about it because nobody ever brings it up.
Well,
It
we're
looks to me
Spurg
like
zone
the-
now, man. Spurg country.
Yeah,
here.
that's deep lore. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's actually the only copies I have are the blurry letters. So I have the original printings.
Right.
So for some reason, I mean, the files I sent are 300 DPI, pitch perfect as they should have been. For whatever reason, the printer got low res, and nothing in their quality control kicked it back, saying this isn't 300 DPI.
Right.
So I never asked what happened. I guess I probably could still. But I just figured either he sent them low res because he didn't know maybe he didn't know what to do.
Last minute dialogue edits or stuff. You never know.
It could have been, it could have been really anything. All I know is what the files that I sent over were 300 DPI TIFF files, and the artwork was because John works at 450 DPI. So everything was well at or above what it needed to be, just somewhere in the pipeline in the printing side. It got.
That's funny because
really...
out here on this side of things, there was people were talking about how I think Zach might have mentioned it. They're like, oh, we need vector fonts preserved or something now. They have to be embedded in the PDF, and that was a whole thing. And everyone was trying to scramble to interpret that and standardize that across everyone else's comics.
I could actually speak to that. It's not necessary. It's really not. You can.
It isn't. No.
No.
If it's 300 DPI, it's the same difference, I guess. Right?
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be vector either. There are people that make comics and print them, and they do everything in Photoshop, and Photoshop rasterizes the text. You can make it look good. It's just sort of if you want to have that. Without question, nothing will ever go wrong, even though, generally speaking, as long as your files are 300 DPI and TIFF and not artifacted JPEGs, nothing will go wrong. But yeah, and then on the PDF itself, they do stay preserved as vectors. So when I pre-press now, you get as you zoom in on the PDF, the artwork will pixelate eventually, but the text will always stay crisp. But again, nobody's zooming in like that. So until print standard goes up to 600 DPI, which I don't know if it ever would. 95% of what I do is flat TIFF files. Those are the files that get sent to a printer from Brookside Letter, because I'm having to deal of those 95%. The majority of those people are first time creators, and having as much hassle-free road ahead of them as I can give them. A flat 300 DPI TIFF file is perfect for them to be able to put a print file together. Yeah.
Well, that's clarifying. It's actually it's funny to hear that settled years later now, because that was pretty stressful for a lot of people, including me. What does he mean by this? What, a 300 DPI isn't good enough now? What am I supposed to do?
Yeah.
So that was essentially the springboard to all of these other jobs. But there essentially no competition. Is that the reason why you ended up getting inundated?
At the time, I guess. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't anybody else that was. CG was scary back then, and luckily for me, nobody cares who the letterer is. Generally speaking, Zach's right. At least they didn't. And then my name was you got to get Eric Weathers. And the chats and all the streams, it was a big deal. Even John would. There you go, Snuggie. Even John Malin at the beginning, he was guys, and he's my champion. I mean, he was guys, you got to hire Eric Weathers. He does great work. He's great to work with, and there wasn't any competition. So.
Well, there's still not any. I don't see a lot of people gunning for your spot. out there, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's an art form to it, and I think a lot of first time creators. I was there. I mean, I know. You think, oh, I can letter. That seems pretty easy, and then you try to make a balloon tail, and then you realize I have no idea what I'm doing. So, and that's how I started with Flying Fortress, was just trying to figure this out. Like, even I didn't even letter that first Zero issue. That was lettered by the co-creator Andy Moore, and I took over, I think, on issue 1. But even then I was like, I can't make it. I don't know how to make the tail curve right. So I'm just going to give it this sort of a half curve. So, and I had what, 8 issues of under my belt, plus a couple things here and there. I did, that Frankennaut book, and I had done 1s and 2s here and there of like personal projects that were 24-hour comics and things like that. So I had enough sort of mileage
Earthworm
to
Jim was
build up
pretty
that art form.
That was pretty big too, right? When you got Earthworm Jim.
Yeah, and that was such a weird one too, because he was like, you got to work in Photoshop and you got to draw them this way, and you got to, yeah, that was because I was in that pipeline of Illustrator, but he wanted it all looking hand drawn. I was like, I can do that in Illustrator, but he wasn't having it.
Such a
Oh,
And
cool
then
wow.
he
project,
went in and changed
like,
everything.
for the old
Like-
video game stuff. That one, was
Yeah.
stood out.
Wait,
to
wait.
me,
He changed. What do you mean? Like, he redid what you did?
Yeah, so like I was working on a script that wasn't complete, like it wasn't finalized,
Hmm.
Okay.
because Doug was very much like, he was doing that Doug thing of like, I'm going to draw 2 pages a day, and I'm not going to be late. And he was being very much like that. And so he, I guess,
Wrote
didn't
beyond
have
his script, I guess. Like, he outpaced his own script in terms of production.
Well, yeah, like it wasn't finalized by the time when I got to it, because there were lines that were changed and things like that. And then he went in, and I guess if he didn't like one of the ways I did something, he went in and would change it, or would have to change it because the dialogue had changed. So,
Hmm.
like,
I guess that's why
yeah,
he wanted it raster, because he knows Photoshop.
there you go. Yeah. So I mean, it was great. Like, I was like pumped. I was like, Earthworm Jim, this is freaking cool.
Uh-huh.
But he didn't ask me back. So what are you gonna do?
I
Hmm.
mean, Doug kind of dugged, or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's
So,
true.
but still,
He's
I know
not
you're a
asking
video
himself
game-
back anymore. He's just making Maricopa County videos, and I think he's bowed out of comics. So
Yeah,
just
he was a
sad.
big champion of it forever. So
Hmm.
yeah.
Decades of work.
I mean, I'm a part of that too, which is pretty neat for all of
Absolutely.
his.
Then you got the Walmart comics. You lettered all those
Yeah.
too, didn't you? Yeah, man. You
Yes, I
blew
did. Still
up.
Wow.
am, actually. But they're not Walmart anymore. But that's a whole thing that I
What was
barely
that
know anything
like?
about.
Yeah, tell us about Allegiance.
Let me think.
You don't have to. Don't tell. You've already told
This isn't
some
shit
stories
talking.
out of
I'm
school.
just admiring
but-
how you blew
No.
up. From big project to big project.
No, that's
It's
Yeah.
fine. Yeah,
kind of a remarkable story. Of
It is.
an achievement of networking, really.
that's what
You're
it
the
was.
Forrest
It was
Gump of CG.
it was the CG network. I just hope nobody shoots me in the ass. The Allegiance art thing was it's kind of similar. Because once I got those 2 jobs, I was like, my DMs are open, because that became my full-time job. I
is that
legitimately
when you
became
quit like your regular and just went full time as a letterer then?
Yeah, after I did, let's see, I think it was 28. I started in September of 2018. I think it may have been 17, but I'm pretty sure it was 18. And then by mid 2019, my wife was able to quit her full-time job, go down and work at the part-time job she wanted to work at. We bought
Wow.
a house. Like, it legitimately
What?
changed our life. Yeah.
That's amazing.
amazing.
So you were both able
Con-
to. That's great.
Yeah. Comicsgate legitimately changed our life because of everything that has happened, because of the big books, because of the constant Comicsgate live streams. And when Ethan would promote everybody, I was on most of those books. So those books make money, and then I get a job. Like, it was perfect. And early on, in that same sense, to get back to Allegiance, Mitch messaged me and wanted to see some. He's like, do you have a portfolio? And I sent him a few pages of, because I think I'm trying to remember exactly. I think my two biggest books were still just Jawbreakers and Graveyard Shift. I hadn't done.
I mean, those are some pretty big books.
Yeah. I mean, those were but I don't think there were anything. I hadn't touched anything Cyberfrog or anything yet. So,
oh wow.
And there's a story there too.
Yeah.
So, he messaged me and was like, "Can I see your portfolio?" And then we talked back and forth, and we talked on the phone a little bit, and he told me what their plans were, and was like, "Hey, could you handle 4 books a month?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can handle 4 books a week." Like, because it just
you do about a book a day, right? Like
if 22 pages, I could do a book a day. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh wow.
22 to 30.
That's great. No wonder you're buying
pages.
a house. That's fantastic.
Yeah. It just depends. I mean, it depends on the book. It depends on, because some of them are a heavy dialogue and there's a lot of sound effects and a lot of like bold every other word, and those take longer. And there's some that are pretty light and those go quicker. But if I can easily, and I've gotten a whole system down of just, it's become sort of a second hand for me, so we talked, and he was like, "Hey, we're doing this, and don't tell anybody, but we've got this Walmart deal." And I was thinking at the time, I was like, I hope the books come out to backers beforehand.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate how that happened. But they're wonderful to work with. And it was just like, that whole thing was like, man, I'm lettering just insane. Like, even now I still think like, I've lettered for like Chuck Dixon, I've lettered a Graham Nolan book, I've lettered Ethan, John Malin, Shane Davis, Sergio, the guy that drew the Bible, Argonias.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
Group is what I
because
think
he did the Zach's latest the backup story in Knife Hand Blind Spot. And I'm just like, all right, Billy Tucci, I know you got a guy, but come on, man, I'm right here, Billy Tucci.
Yeah, you're trying to complete the set.
I am. I got Art T. Bear. Yeah, it's my collection. I keep their essences in a jar on my shelf so I can grow stronger. But yeah, I mean, he was like, I mean, I don't know what else. The Allegiance thing was great because it was like, I am the guy and I'm going to letter all their books, and I still am the guy lettering all their books. And it was like, you're going to work with, I mean, Mitch's artwork is, I love it. And there was like Butch Geis and Kelsey Shannon and
Butch Geis. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Ridiculously fucking good, man.
So
how do you cover that stuff up? Like I just feel bad. I'm like, can this just be a silent comic?
And the funny thing is the guys that have been working the longest are the hardest to letter around. But it's because they're putting so much care into their pages that you don't want to cover anything up. But then the dialogue is there and you're like, I have to, and I don't want to, because you just wish it was like, what if that line was just like 2 words shorter? I could not cover up this one small thing. Like, it's a bit frustrating and me as an artist, like looking at this stuff, thinking, look at all the time they put into inking.
Oh yeah, so many treasures.
Yeah, it's all hidden, and that actually kind of leads into the Cyberfrog thing. If you want to get into that.
Can I? Okay, can I set you up for this?
Yes, please do.
All right, I'm gonna do. This is my attempt. I remember there was a stream. I think it was like 2019 or something. It was you and Clint. And you guys were trying to give like wink, nod, eye signals to each other about how you didn't like how some of the wording, because people in the chat at that point for first Cyberfrog were saying like some stuff is borderline illegible. It was just getting
you a headache a little because
and you guys were like, I don't know if we can speak about this on live, but
I didn't. Yeah,
you were like slowly not shaking your head. So that's my setup. So you take with it.
Yeah. So that stream happened. I don't remember when it was. Hopefully it's still up somewhere.
Yeah.
and Clint and I were talking about Cyberfrog, and we were like, we were saying, like, I think Clint was like, just because that's the way it was done in the 90s doesn't mean it's the way it needs to be done now. I was like, yeah, they're kind of hard to read. And I don't know if Ethan ever saw that, but
Yeah.
you're right. We were very, we were dancing around it. We were both like, the lettering just isn't very good. And there was
Y's
a
look
point
like
when,
4s. It was weird, man.
yeah, and it was just bad. It was bad font choice, and there were, like, especially for the Chelson, however you say it, character,
Yeah.
that
Chelsea and
robotic,
stuff. Yeah.
yeah, and the guy's name was Somni. He did great. Like, he's a great illustrator artist, Adobe Illustrator artist. Like, some of his the way he did her balloons and stuff, that was like all technical and it falling apart when she was powering down or dying or whatever it was. Spoiler alert. And that was really cool. And I thought, well, people are going to really think that my stuff's really low quality compared to that. But there was something to what he had done that made it hard to read. And Ethan apparently got a lot of people saying it's hard to read. So he brought me on in 2019 to work on Unforgettable Tales. And so I guess that was him trying me out for the big show. So what had happened is he wanted to remaster Unforgettable and get it colored by Kyle, and the lettering wasn't. I mean, he lettered on the page as he drew it, so those word balloons were drawn onto the original art, and some of the stuff was illegible, and there were a couple of lines he wanted to change. There were specific lines talking about Eric Larson's teeth. And so my task was to re-letter that, and Unforgettable Tales 1 and 2, I had to fit my lettering into his old word balloons. So I went in, and
that's a fun challenge.
Yeah, so I had to go in and retype them and fit them in, and it was and then back then, Cyberfrog's balloons were just white balloons. So then I had to go and trace over them. And it was really frustrating because the balloons wouldn't be where I would have put them, but they had to be where they were. I couldn't move them because the artwork was already set. So, so there are, it is what it is. It was a lot of fun to work on. It was a fun challenge because I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? And so I got to do like Deathfly's design, and you try to make it look like it was, but colorized. So you got Kyle's colors. Okay. So that was fun to work off of. And then when it came to Unforgettable 3, I forget the details of how this came about, but I had the art before it got colored. No, I think it was
the recolored.
Kanuga had scans of it that Ethan didn't have anymore, and Ethan asked me if I could just get them ready, line art ready for Kyle to color them, and I said, yeah, sure, no problem.
That's the crossover issue with Creed, right? You were saying?
I don't think Creed was in. I think there may have been a splash page, but Unforgettable 4, I think, is when Creed came in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was just trying to figure out why Trent would have the pages or something.
I think it was because he had a portfolio of stuff, and they were working. That's when they were working at the same time when they were teenagers, working on their own books.
At Harris, right?
So,
was it Harris?
Yeah, either Harris or Hall of Heroes, one of the two.
Okay.
And so, anyways, Ethan had these, and it may have been Matt Martin that had the scans. Somebody had the scans, but they were Xeroxes. And so he's like, can you get these cleaned up and ready for coloring? I said, absolutely, let me do that. And I'm looking at them, and it's the same thing. The word balloons are in the way. So I emailed him. I was like, hey, we have an opportunity here. Would you mind if I photoshopped out the word balloon so that when I letter it, I can letter it like a real comic book, and I can put the balloons where they would be best fit? And he said, yeah, go for it. So I went through each page and meticulously photoshopped out all of the word balloons, and some of them were in crazy places, like over Cyberfrog's, like a Cyberfrog's hand is in the foreground really big, and there's this massive word balloon over the top of it. So he's got these big round knuckles and the piping on his fingers. And
Wait, what are
so
you saying? Are you saying you redrew Cyberfrog's hand?
No, I made Ethan from 19-year-old Ethan redraw his own stuff because I would take pieces from
Oh, it'd be
other
like, yo, I need
pages
this
that could fit
knuckle.
in.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
You'd
so like,
Photoshop
okay,
out a knuckle from a different page and
yes.
kind of
Oh,
stretch
okay.
it and
Kind of
throw it
clone
in there.
stamp, kind of this and
Yeah.
that. Okay,
That's kind
There
of
was-
dope. I like that.
cool.
The only thing that I would have, the only places I had to draw in lines that weren't original from the era were some cross-hatching lines in the background of a couple panels that wouldn't line up right. So I had to go in and manually
Yeah, just got to draw
connect
that.
those cross hatches. Yeah. So
Oh,
then,
that's cool. Wow.
then I cleaned those up, made them look like they were drawn without lettering, and then Kyle did his magic, and then I.
So was that the
took over.
hardest project to letter, with the most work
It was-
required, or what?
It's certainly the most involved because of all that extra work. I mean, I'm not in the business of fixing other people's artwork
Right.
before I get to my part, but I wanted to, because I had done 2 books where I'm like just filling in word balloons that are already there. And it's like, I can't, creatively, it's gone, right? I can't put the balloons where I want them. I'm just tracing. Nobody wants
Yeah,
to do.
and you're calling yourself like you're going to be listed as the letterer, but you're not able to
Yes.
make lettering decisions. So you almost
Yes.
feel like you're taking credit for something that you might not want to take credit for
Yeah,
because someone else did it, and because
Yeah.
it might be something like you can make better decisions maybe than a 23-year-old
that was-
Ethan did. Yeah.
That was a big worry of mine at the time. Like, I'm lettering a Cyberfrog book, but like I'm dealing with this. So
Mhm.
I was very, very happy that Ethan was like,
That's fair.
Yeah.
But you didn't stop at Cyberfrog, did you? Your next big thing was a job with the gigantic force, which is the Rippaverse, right?
Yeah.
And
We're not done with Cyberfrog yet.
Oh,
We're not done with that. So I did Unforgettable 1, 2, and 3, and then Ethan wants to redo Blood Honey like a re-release, and so he took that opportunity to bring me on not full time, but to bring me on as his guy for that. So I re-lettered Blood Honey, and that was weird because I didn't have a script; I just had the comic, so I had to.
Oh, that's
you
funny.
couldn't copy and
Yeah.
paste it over then. Damn.
Right, because the way that those PDFs work, like, if I had my Mac can Apple on my MacBook, you can highlight text from an image, and I had to do that for lettering once because I got a script in JPEGs, which is a story unto its own. But you're able to highlight text,
wasn't it?
on a Mac. I'm not going to say what script it was,
but they were 72 DPI.
Yeah, exactly. But so I had to like still copy it over, and but I was able to re-letter Cyberfrog, and he was like, make it legible. I was like, you got it, because that's my thing, is like I want things to be clear, and I haven't always succeeded. There have been times when I've lettered something and it got to print, I was like, ugh, why did I pick that color or whatever. But the great thing about it was I was able to see Ethan's artwork unlettered because I was starting from scratch, and there were things in there that the other letterer had covered up that I thought Ethan would have loved for this not to have been covered up. In the scene when what's her name, the girl, gosh dang it, Heather Swain, is coming home, and Cyberfrog's there, and they're eating chicken, and Salamandroid peeks his head in the window. They're watching MTV or whatever, and on the wall is a picture of Elvis. And I'm like, Ethan's a huge Elvis fan. He drew that there as an Easter egg because he's an Elvis fan. And there was a giant word balloon on it. And you didn't even know it was there. I was like, well, we're going to show this Elvis drawing. There were other things like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So it was, that was fun to do. But again, it was difficult because I wasn't able to use a script. I just had to copy over from what was already there. And then we tied in the diary of Heather Swain. So that became that square bound Cyberfrog Blood Honey. That is now the sort of go-to standard for that. And then I've been lettering Ethan's books since. And that includes Cyberfrog and all of its little things that have come out with the new Wreck Planet book, and I even got to letter when Kenneth announced Groken. I was like, okay, maybe he'll hire me, and then it's like drawn, penciled ink, colored, lettered, edited by Kenneth Rocafort. I was like, okay, that's not going to happen. But he did his. I know Ethan's talked about this. He's done his Gingerbread Man story, and I got to letter that. So I got to letter a Kenneth Rocafort book too.
Oh, that's the
nice.
John Wick as a Gingerbread Man. Yeah, but that's
going to be in
be
the
shipping with
full
Rainbow
story, bro.
Brute, right?
Yep.
That'll be fun.
Yeah. So yeah, that rounds out the Cyberfrog story so far. Hopefully, we're still in the early chapters of that book for my part in it.
So do you have anything you want to, any anecdotes you want to share about working with Ripa?
Oh yeah, Ripa. So that started, was it 2021?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
From
I
our
lettered it
end.
in 21. So I didn't really know who he was, but people would talk about him in chats. Oh, Ripa's, check out this Ripa video, or he'd be in like DM groups and things, and I'd watch him and I'd think, yeah, this is pretty cool stuff, but it wasn't like I wasn't following him at all. But when the rumblings came up that he was going to be doing a comic book, then my interest is peaked, thinking, okay, I see that as somebody's going to need a letterer. And I hope if he doesn't hire me, he gets somebody that can actually do good, because it's important to me that the big books in this movement, any book in this movie, gets as quality of every bit of quality that they can get for what they have and what they have access to.
Mm-hmm.
So he put out that talent search call, and I filled out the form saying, hey, I'm Eric Weathers. You might know my books from, Jawbreakers and Graveyard Shift, Cyberfrog. I'd love
a hell of
to
a
letter your
resume.
book.
To say that
Yeah.
much.
And I said, I'd love to be a part of the team with whatever you're doing. So let me know. And then he emailed me that night, got right back to me, and he said, Eric, I am more than aware of your, or I'm well aware of your work, or something like that. And I would love to have you on the team. And I said, that's great. So then,
awesome.
yeah, so that got me ISOM 1, and then I guess about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. Yeah, it was definitely less than a year ago. He messaged me on Twitter and was like, hey, do you know anybody that could design full-time, do pre-press and little graphic designs here and there, on an as needed basis, full-time? I was like, yeah, I think I know somebody. Me. So yeah, as of mid-February, I've been full-time, non-exclusive. Let me be clear, non-exclusive, with the Rippaverse. Actually, I've been on the Rippaverse team with everybody there. It's been great. Yeah. So that's sort of my 9 to 5 now, is making sure I get all of that stuff taken care of that I need to. So I've done graphic design, illustration, graphic design for social media posts, and I'm doing all the pre-press work now. That's part of my gig. Yeah, it's been great.
You're working on all the whole lineup, I guess, as that's unfolding. That's cool.
Yes, I have my vault of secrets grows ever larger.
Yeah, I kind of want to.
Feel like you have an advantage creatively over everyone else, because like you got access to every story in the marketplace.
I know all the stories. Yeah, I have all of the access to all the people. I probably don't leverage it as much as somebody that's a little bit more, as Jordan Peterson would say, disagreeable than me. Right. So I feel like if I was a little bit more bullheaded about things, but it's just not my personality, I could probably get more out of it. Like, hey, I'm lettering your book, you should promote mine or whatever. But
you've been out of every conflict between all kinds of warring factions that want
every side,
blood from each other, and yet like you're like neutral ground, man. Like you've lettered
Switzerland over here, baby.
Yeah,
You have to be, right? Because
I love it though.
If
I love that.
If I pick a side, then I make enemies, and I think about, okay, I got mouths to feed in this house. If I make an enemy, it's going to get weird, and then people aren't going to want to work with me. So if I just stay Switzerland this whole time, let them fight. Like it became, there was the whole like Doug Cecil thing that happened a couple years ago, which is why Dirtworm Doug happened.
Yeah.
I got one person, not publicly, but personally, said he wouldn't back Battlebrick Road because I'm lettering Cash Grab. Right. And he wanted me to sort of explain myself. Like, why are you lettering this? Because you lettered Earthworm Jim, and Doug and Cecil don't like each other.
Right.
And my answer was, I'm sorry you feel that way, but that's their fight. That's not my fight. I'm just here to letter books. That wasn't good enough.
Were there any creators that pushed you to pick a side, you know?
No, not once. No.
Well, that's cool.
See, that's what's miraculous.
That's
because like everybody else gets mired down in the wars and shit, and you like
they fight on everyone else's behalf.
Or like no, like if you color someone's book that someone else doesn't like that is enough to get you exiled. Like, you know what I'm saying? The fact that you worked on all these, it is an amazing tribute to I guess democracy or whatever, you know.
I mean, I'm not immune to the feelings I have about those fights and like what side I would, You
have opinions, yeah.
Yeah, I have opinions on them. I just don't feel. Here's the honest truth is, if I feel like if I put an opinion out there, somebody's going to say something against it, and I don't have strong enough opinions on most things to care enough to fight about it. So it's like I can say, yeah, I agree with Joe. What's up, Corey? I agree with Joe instead of Ted. But if somebody's like, yeah, but Ted did this, I'm like, yeah, but Joe did that. But ultimately it's not my fight anyways. It is, it being the internet, it's public, but I pick a side. It doesn't help me at all. It doesn't help the conflict at all. And I have always felt like I don't know the full story enough to be able to fully commit to one side or the other, unless it's been obvious. But
right.
Yeah, I just it's easier for me to say, nah. I think Joe's right instead of Ted, but
well, it's funny because like you and Clint kind of represented pretty early on like a I almost want to say like it makes sense from your business perspective but it's also like you also kind of indicated it's your personality too, because it's also and it's one reason probably why you get along so well with Clint, because he's similar, where you kind of you guys both kind of I think have always kind of stayed out of those debates, it seems, which has been interesting. So
it's
that's kind of what your corner is known for in a way.
I'm happy to be known as the guy that doesn't want to get on fights on the internet because I find them kind of silly. But again,
not even as much as like you fighting, but like your enemies not wondering if you'll sell this one out to the other with their most vital IP secrets. Like you know what I'm saying?
No.
Like that shit is crazy.
Yeah,
you know?
I had never considered that as something people would think of it, but no. I mean, I've worked with everybody. And I'm sure I've worked with people that hate each other, like on their different projects. And again, like I don't need to pick a side in something that doesn't affect me personally. And it's just the internet. It's some people think it's more real than it is. There's a lot of kayfabe that goes on too, right. Whether it's intended or not. So yeah. I'm happy to stay here.
I have my final question is like, okay, you are very interesting. Like the way I like to think about you, Eric Weathers, is that you kind of have you kind of exist in the future in a way that no single creator even does, because you're looking at the whole landscape of what's being what's getting produced. Like months and maybe years in advance in some cases
Yeah.
of what we see. Are you excited about what you see from your position in the future?
Constantly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool.
there's a lot of cool stuff coming. Like, there's really,
Yeah, from big
I
and
can't.
small alike.
Yeah, big and small. I mean,
Yeah.
there is always something. There's always the cool thing is there's always something big around the corner.
Mhm.
And Comicsgate is in this crazy spot right now where I was just thinking about this a couple of days ago. Thank you, Corey. Sorry, I get side railed pretty easily. It's crazy to think what Comicsgate has done in 6 years, going on 6 years. It's been 6 years, guys, for the creator movement.
Wow.
Because it started out as people just wanted to make comic books. Just let me make my comic book. And now we've got merch, cups, hats, t-shirts. You've got people making people like pitching animated series. You've got soundtracks coming with things. People making video games based off of their own IP. The well is getting ever deeper in the creative output coming from Comicsgate. Action figures, statues, terror gas vials. It's become so much more than I think what many people thought it was going to be. And not, I know some people can think, well, I just want the comic books. But I think this movement is and was always meant to be bigger than just making comic books that don't pander to you. Because pop culture is bigger than that. And there are plenty of creators that only want to do that, and more power to you. I'm actually kind of one of them. But there are those avenues that we are able to reach because of this crowdfunded model, because of the audiences that we have, the fans that we have, the enemies that we have, that it has grown up way and grown way bigger than I think anybody had hoped or even imagined it would be. Because Comicsgate came off the heels of Gamergate, and comics is a special medium that's able to fight back in a way that other mediums aren't, because late books, whatever, but you can't make a video game in 9 to 12 months. You just not one that's going to turn the tide of a good comic book can in
not
its
a triple
own
A
space.
title. You can't make a triple A title. You can make a triple A comic book though. Is the thing.
Exactly.
And exactly.
And we're able to pivot so much quicker than any other industry is because of that. Because one guy can do that. One guy can make a book. And even at the, the backers are, things are slow. Even that, in comparison to a game that takes 12 years to get made.
Kojima, I'm looking at you.
Yeah. So pop culture wise, comics, we're in this, we're poised for this, we're ready for this, because the audience was already agitated. And then when some creators were able to be brave enough to stand up and say, yeah, I'm with you guys. I can make something that you guys hopefully would like, and I'm not going to pander to you, and I'm not going to shove ideology and all of this garbage down your neck hole. Let's just make fun comics. And let's be loud about it. Let's be crazy about it. Let's get excited about it. And it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful.
So that's what you're so it's confirmed we're going multimedia in whole new ways in the near future. Sounds like, and probably not just with Rippa.
You can even see like Vaughn started an animation studio. And that's what I was referencing.
Oh,
Is he started an animation studio, and they have a pitch for. They put together him and gosh dang it,
his
Adam?
illustrator.
No. The animated guy. He does the Forsaken Gods. What's his
Oh,
name?
Fresher Luke.
Fresher Luke.
Pressure Luke. Yeah. They started.
Awesome.
I forgive me, Vaughn, if you ever see this. I can't remember the name of your studio, but they started an animation studio, and
That's
yeah,
Fresher
great.
Luke, for the record, anybody listening used to work for Cartoon Network. It was, or,
yeah, Adult Swim, I think, something like that.
Yeah, he's a for real life, like real deal.
Yeah, he's
animator,
legit.
So
Yeah.
check him out if you haven't. Forsaken Gods. I think book 3 or 4 is running right now. So
Yeah, so
good
Vaughn
shit.
a couple weeks ago posted their sort of animatic for that, a Monster MD sort of pitch of what it would be like if it were like an animated series or something. It's really cool. So we've got
Wow.
people doing that. Like, that's insane. And you know, Ethan's got the action figures, and PTP's got his Transformers, and
Yeah.
I needed, we gotta get some Battle Brick Road action figures up in here sometime, because
I've seen the
Mhm.
Scarecrow statue you had a few years
yeah,
back.
that was years ago. I haven't heard about that in a while. That was Zeb's cousin was just inspired by the design, and he was a part-time sculptor.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and put that together.
That's
I was like,
right. I
love a
vaguely
statue.
remember that.
Yeah. Anyways,
That's awesome. Well, if Eric's hopeful for the future, because he lives in the future, then we've got a lot of great stuff to look forward to.
there's great stuff coming out, guys. Trust me.
So do you have any closing things to say? I guess. I mean, we took your career from clowning on something you didn't like to, a full-time position at one of the biggest independent comic book creators the planet's ever seen. Journey. Like, is there any closing, thoughts or whatever? We can wrap this up.
Yeah. Let me think. Okay. I will give you some advice for anybody out there that wants to make their own comic book. Don't wait to start. It is very important that you fail. Failure is so important to your success. In fact, I think it's the most important thing, and you'll never fail if you never start. And if you never fail, you'll never get better, and you'll never succeed. So if you have a comic book idea, get it out into the world somehow. You don't have to crowdfund. If you can't draw, you can find artists out there. I am where I am because I took that leap. I was forced out of the airplane, and I caught the parachute on the way down with Flying Fortress. And I spent years on that book, and I learned every aspect of making comics, from writing the script to getting the file ready for print to trying to try and convince people that it's a story worth buying. Mm-hmm. And I did that for 7 years before I even met Comicsgate.
Mm-hmm.
So
hustle.
Yeah, don't wait. And back Battle Brick Road 2 when we launch sometime later this year.
When is do you have a window on that? We were really hoping to launch last year, but I couldn't decide on a cover that I liked from what I was churning out. And then Ethan's cover inks I'm still waiting on. And then I have another redo cover. That's Ethan inking over John Malin. If the guys
that's correct
in the chat don't know what it is, it's a special team up cover.
Oh, wow.
It's of the Lion, right?
It's of the whole team.
Okay.
So it was
That's
originally
incredible.
going to be for the first book, and then Ethan had it. I don't think he had started. I don't even think he had started yet. But then Kenneth showed up, and I asked Kenneth to do a trading card, and people loved it so much they wanted it a cover, which is why I have the Kenneth Roquefort cover. It was originally just a trading card, that Scarecrow. So I was like, I don't want to do 3 covers, and so I was like, Ethan, if you don't mind, can we move that to book 2? Because I got this Kenneth Roquefort, and he was like, go do it. Yes, you're silly not to. So, So then, and it worked out great because John had drawn the full team, and the full team isn't in the first book, so they're in the second book, and it totally makes more story
Smart.
sense that they're all there. Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's gonna work out great. So we were waiting on that, and then I had sent I want to have way more to jump off with when we launched the campaign, colored pages and all the whole 9 yards, because we did not have that with the first book.
And you
And
didn't need
so-
it back then. Back then,
Right.
you could start a more bare bones project and catch momentum and kind of add as you went a little bit more.
Yeah, and that's
now.
it's kind of exactly how we did it too. I had just a handful of pages, no colors, I had a color covered, but yeah, we did that whole thing, and I don't want to go through that again, but I still kind of am. I just haven't launched yet. So, and then I was waiting for the colorist, and that was the whole thing. They were trying to find the right colors for the book. We found a great colorist in Vinny Townsend. So he went on holiday for like a month. He went on vacation for like a month, like right as he got the page. He's like, I got a month, and then he got sick for like 2 weeks with the flu. And so he was behind on his other work. So he's been trying to play catch up. So it's been a bit of a slog to trying to get everything sort of on track so that we can launch it. In fact, I was like, I have the thing up here. I want to, because that what you're looking at right now wasn't even colored. So I went in and I colored that myself just to get something of color on the website. So, but yeah, I've got pages from him now. He's alive. He's not sick anymore. He's, he's a little bit behind schedule, which is understandable. But yeah, we're gonna try and hit the ground running with this one.
Wait, so you weren't drawing?
The next chapter's already drawn. So what's that?
You're not doing line work for this edition. I mean, the second Battle Vic Road.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, okay. Wait, then who is turning in pages?
His colorist.
Oh, the colorist.
His
sorry.
colorist my colorist turning in
Gotcha.
pages I sent him. Yeah.
Gotcha. Good, because I want you still on lines.
Oh yeah, I'm not.
Don't give
I'm not
that
going
up.
anywhere. Yeah.
Check out Downcast 4. I believe he has a
Speaking of lines.
24-page book he's drawing for Clint, right?
Yes.
Nice.
I did a 20-page story of Monstro, which is the diver suit guy, for Clint. He was like, "You're done with Battle Rick Road, right?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "All right. Would you like to do this?" It's like, "Of course,
Awesome.
Clint. It's Monstro and you're Clint, so let's do it." And yeah, it was just good timing, I guess.
So are you using your colorist on that project too, so you keep a consistent team, or what do you?
No, Clint hired. I don't know who Clint. I think it's the same colors that colored the main Downcast book for my story. So Damian Penalba, I think, is his name. So,
and you've got the intro line art for Battle Brick Road 2 available online. Excuse me.
I
Sorry.
do. You found it.
People want to check that out before signing up.
Yeah, and there'll be more. I am going to be. There's going to be an Indiegogo, but I'm also doing it on my own site. So I've been building that out too. So that's been another thing, like trying to figure out how to make that whole process work. Do I need exclusives? And I'm certainly into the point of not. The more books that come out that people do, and the more extras that people do, I'm like, I just want to put books out. It seems like people are getting more and more tired of all the prints and all of that stuff. So going forward, we do have a vinyl record coming out with this one, because I love collecting vinyl records. So I was like, I want to do a soundtrack. So I've been sitting on the music for like 6 to 8 months, I think. So I'm just waiting, to crowdfund it so we can get the money to get it printed and pressed and along with it. But other than that, it's just going to be like trading cards and, small stuff. And I think we're also going to have an option where you can just get just the book and nothing else.
I did find
extra
that
free.
soundtrack.
Yeah, there's a little snippet of it there. I commissioned Vosto, who's done a lot of work within CG for different campaigns, like trailer music and stuff for themes for different books. They did Monster MD and
he's the synthwave guy, right? He makes that synth.
Yeah.
He did.
So there's sort of like this
Joe Catapano's.
Star Circuit.
Star Circuit.
Yeah. So he gave this sort of Blade Runner vibe too. So there are two theme songs that'll be on this record, side A and side B. So it'll be a theme song for Scarecrow and a theme song for Tin Man, and they both sort of give the vibe of each character. And there'll be digital versions that will give away. But for the people that want to collect, and I'm planning, hopefully, have like a small little mini comic that goes into that record as well. So that'll be something that people would even just want to pick up for that reason.
Nice, like Power Records used to come with
Yeah.
the comic
That's
book
awesome.
and the record, man.
Finatra was wondering where you're getting your vinyls made.
You can get vinyls pressed. There's a couple places, but I'm going to be using Third Man Records out of Detroit, which is Jack White's company.
Nice.
And there are other places
And
that do it in the U.S. So if that schedule
you were
doesn't
in a
work out or
band, right?
whatever,
Like,
so
you're a former musician, right? In a band.
yeah, nothing serious, but yeah, I used to play.
No, but I mean, like, you'd have knowledge of how to hook up a soundtrack. You have a musical background a little bit, right?
Yeah, and Zeb as well as a musician too. So
Nice.
it was important for us. And the funny thing is we're not on either of these soundtracks, but I think if there was a track that would need acoustic treatment, like maybe a Thea thing, Zeb would handle that. He did. He plays around on what is it, Pro Tools, I think it's called, and he's composed some things just for fun, and it sounds great. Like he's like, I made this thing. Like he made us like what sounded like the intro to like a Netflix series. You could picture like the Daredevil with like the statues and the blood, and it's like, yeah, dude, that feels like perfect.
Yeah.
So even like in the future, if the record thing hits and people want like a full thing, then we've got enough characters and enough story beats that we could write out a full soundtrack. That would definitely have to be its own thing, though.
So it's more like an EP kind of thing now.
Yeah, right now this is just a 7-inch vinyl, 2 songs. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah.
What it's so this is a kind of a lame question, but if we're not cool enough to have a record player, is there a way for us to experience this? I guess
Yes.
one of the songs is on the trailer, right? So
there's a little 30-second snip there, and then once it's released, I want to get it on Spotify and find other, get like MP3 downloads for people, wherever we can
send out a QR code or something.
Yeah, there'll be ways for you to download it for sure.
Cool.
But for the collector, like me, that would love to have I just think like, what would I want to own? It's like the statue thing. Like I want to have a Scarecrow statue. So eventually we're going to get one made. I want to have a soundtrack. Yeah. That's a little bit easier and cheaper to get done than manufacturing a statue. So that's where we're starting.
That's right.
Also, dude, if you need a statue printed, talk to Phil. Him and his brother do all the stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Toho.
Yeah.
Up at the arcade now. They got this mega 3D printer, man. They do all the Godzilla garage kits and shit. So,
okay,
man, they hooked up the coolest Tiger Blue statue that's like gigantic. So,
wow.
And, they're homies, so the prices aren't, like, no, you know what I'm saying? They're not gonna rape you.
I know. Yeah.
Wait, who is this? Phil who?
Phil Diaz and his brother Brandon.
Oh, okay. Oh, Diaz brothers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
They work at Galloping Ghost Arcade. It's like the largest video game collection of arcade machines or something. And that arcade works like with the Mortal Kombat people to make their own video game. And like they have a gym that like the Mortal Kombat, the people who are in the Mortal Kombat game, that they photographed to make the animation of the old game, like they're trainers at the gym and shit, and like
that's crazy.
They're real
I didn't know
plugged
that
up with that.
That's amazing.
His boss is like a super Godzilla collector, so like all those Godzilla garage kits that cost like several $1,000 and shit, right? So they got so much of that built up that he became like a manufacturer of garage kits, like with this new 3D printer shit, these industrial 3D printers. So it's no joke, it's look into that, man. Because I remember that Scarecrow statue, and that's it. Will be.
It was great, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds rad.
Cool. Sounds like there's a lot to look forward to, Eric. You're a really busy guy.
I am.
Yeah, I'm wondering actually. You said that you're kind of the Switzerland of, this little comic creator space. But have you ever witnessed anything so egregious where you thought, "Yeah, I'm probably not going to work with that creator anytime in the future"? Is there any impetus for you to turn down work?
I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility. There are certain projects I probably wouldn't want to, not necessarily because of the creators, but maybe also because of the content. That maybe I'm like, maybe I shouldn't. There's sometimes I look back and think, because I'm in a position where people are like, "Hey, can you letter my book?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And it doesn't come out for 2 years, and I don't see a page for forever. And then I get an email like, 14 months later saying it's ready, let's go. I was like, all right. And you never know what you're really signing up for. So I really, really, really dodged a bullet because the guy from Little Girl Lethal asked if I would letter his book.
Mm.
Well,
it's like, I got kids. I letter, like, I work from home. They're homeschooled. Like, I can't be lettering a book with a bunch of nudity in it. And he's like, yeah, you probably have to letter this at night. He's like, I think I'm going to pass. And like 3 months later, he was arrested. 3 months later, he was arrested for child porn. So I was like, I dodged a bullet there.
What? That is really the response. You should probably letter this at night.
That was his response. Yeah, he's like, probably
red flag.
When the kids are in bed. I was like, no, thanks. Yeah,
Man.
not gonna do it.
It's interesting how that was immediately obvious, right?
Yeah, it's like this. Yeah, that's a whole thing there. I'm glad I didn't get to that. Stumble into that one. But there have been projects where I was like, yeah, it wouldn't have been a book that had I known. It's like, maybe like, I'm not a big fan of nudity in comics, for instance. Like,
right.
It's like, okay, but I'm not going to back out because I want to be a man of my word saying, yeah, I lettered your book. Okay. I said I would do it. Let's do it. And I've been a little bit more.
Do you put the word bubbles over the titties then? So, you know.
I censor it myself. Yeah. It's sound effect. That's where sport came. Yeah. That's how sport. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But moving forward, I'm just a little bit more cautious. Like, is it mature? Like, how mature? Like, let's see. So,
sure. Yeah, you're a family man.
Yeah. So, so far I haven't had to turn anything down that way. And as far as like people's fighting, I haven't seen, and I really, unless it was the big dust ups, I never really saw any of the other stuff. Like there's crazy stuff. Like I was supposed to letter Xenotype, for instance. I got hired to do the first 20 pages and then I got ghosted.
Wow.
Ooh.
So there's some weird stories. It's like, would I ever do that? I don't know. And then there was the Nasser Donald thing, their whole mix up. And then that got ironed out, but then there's other, there's always something going on in CG. So it's difficult, and it's so case by case, and sometimes like, sure. And it's been a year and then something happened publicly. It's like, well, I already said I'd letter it. I don't want to renege on a deal. I don't want to be that guy that backs out because of.
Did you worked on the war campaign book, right? The first one?
Or no? Somni, I thought.
No, I was. Okay. I went on their show and they said, "Hey, we want to hire you for whatever. What was it called?
Vestige,
I don't remember what it was. Vestige, yeah. Dr. Rowe and whoever was there. Like, yeah, we want you to letter the book. And that was the last I'd heard of it. Like, what's your rate? Oh, that's great. Yeah, we'll reach out to you. And then the book was out and lettered by Somni. Because I guess they wanted Ethan's letterer, which is funny because they got the one that lost his job.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the way that. It's kind of funny how that ended up.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like fate is playing its hand and guiding your career. So hopefully it continues to bless you. So with greater success and more comics, you're definitely springboarding all of this networking into your own personal endeavors. So
hopefully it's smooth sailing.
That's something we can all wish for in CG.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we've hit the 2-hour mark, Eric, and it's actually been amazing talking with you. There's a lot of interesting stories. I'm sure you could tell. We could probably spend another 2 hours going through all the lore.
Just getting started, right?
Yeah, exactly. In a lot of senses, like, there's a lot more to look forward to, as you said, in CG. So we're all just getting started.
We are.
Everyone, that's going to be the stream for tonight. We have to thank Eric for his contribution, his work, and his presence. Thank you so much for joining us for the interview. And
My pleasure.
Matthew Fowler, Matt C., and in absentia Cider. So thank you all for the review.
Thanks for having me on.
It was a great book to read. We really enjoyed it. Thank you, Eric, and your team.
Oh, thank you. This was a lot of fun.
Great. Yeah, we try to make it very focused on the work and the creator. So I'm glad we get the opportunity to do that. So thank you for joining us for it. And everyone, there will be an after stream unzipped. So head on over there. I dropped the link in the chat. We'll hang out for a few hours and catch up on all the juicy goings on in CG. But for now, thank you, Eric, and everyone. Have a good night.
Night.
Later.
See ya.